Welcome to this presentation on using advanced information skills to support your research. My name is Dr. Peter Khan. I'm Director of Studies for the Professional Doctorate in Higher Education here at the University of Liverpool. So I'm going to introduce you to a set of 4 online tutorials that my colleagues in the University Library have prepared for you. We'll go through the tutorials briefly, but they really are designed to support you engage in research. And the tutorials are assessing research impact, disseminating your research, keeping up to date, and using library databases. So they're particularly important for conducting a research thesis, but they are also important for conducting research more widely as well. Now, before I look at the tutorials with you, I want to just step back a second and ask the question, what is it that matters in research? What matters? And my answer is that you are trying to make an original contribution to knowledge and to practice, particularly in the case of a professional doctorate. You're trying to make a difference, you're trying to make an impact, you're trying to make a contribution to something that matters. Originality is essential on a doctoral level work, and these information skills are there to help you demonstrate that your work is original. It enables you to spot gaps in the field, to demonstrate that your research meets a gap in the field. Or impact. If your work is to make a difference, you need to be able to tell that it's made a difference, that it's had an impact on others, that other people are citing it, other people are using it. So originality and impact, for me, are quite key. So as we go through these tutorials, those are 2 things you should keep in mind, that you should be using these information skills in order to help you demonstrate that your research is original and that it's making a contribution to knowledge and to practice. Also, before we look at the 4 tutorials, just to say something about how you might use them. Rather than regard them as finished, polished pieces of work that you sit back and watch or listen to or absorb, you really should be undertaking an active stance in relation to them. Think about what concrete actions can you undertake in relation to tutorials to actually absorb what's going on, to learn how to work with them. And also to make connections with things that are important to you, with ideas you've already come across. What connects to originality? What connects to impact? You should be making connections around things you're already aware of. So do take an active stance, an active, committed stance, as you go through the tutorials. So let's look at each of these tutorials. First of all, assessing research impact. How can you tell that some piece of research has made a difference, it's had an impact on the field? There are ways to assess how significant a piece of research is. Citation statistics, for instance, are one of the key ones. And the tutorial takes you through a range of things. It is important that you can assess how much impact a piece of research has. But rather than just stop there, how can you use that? Pick a theorist, pick a researcher whom you regard as well respected, and have a look at their impact. How much is their work cited? Where is their work published? What are the impact factors of the journals? Have a look at these things. Or if you've published some research yourself, take a look at your own research and see what impact it's had, and think how you might increase the impact of that research. So that's a few things on assessing research impact. The next tutorial is on disseminating your research. So again, the tutorial gives you some basic starting points. But think as you work through it, are there ways you could extend what's being presented to you in the tutorial? Are there other principles you could draw on that you think, that's something that's relevant as well? Let me give you an example from some of my own recent work. I was leading a discussion last week on how you disseminate research with colleagues. And I used the tutorial as a starting point for that discussion. But rather than just repeating back the tutorial to my colleagues, I used it just as a starting point. And I thought, what other things can I draw on the basis of this to help my colleagues understand how to increase research impact? And fairly early on, it occurred to me that a few years ago, I had edited a book, a guide to staff and educational development. And one of the chapters was on disseminating educational developments. And it occurred to me that there would be lots of parallels between that chapter and how you disseminate research outputs. For instance, one of the ideas was that you integrate the dissemination at an early stage of the project. You don't wait till the end and try and disseminate it right at the end. So rather than producing a research paper and then disseminating it, you might think, even at the beginning, how can I disseminate this paper right at the start? Collaborative research, for instance, is already beginning to disseminate the research. Other people have already become involved, as they would have within educational development. Or talking to other people about research as it's going on. There may be ways in which you can talk about aspects of the research without necessarily revealing sensitive parts of the research. Being engaged throughout the research project, disseminating it through the whole phase of the research is one way of increasing the dissemination. The next tutorial, keeping up to date. Fields do change. New research is published all the time. And in a sector like higher education, other currents come in and shift the field. For instance, in the UK, with student fees going up significantly, that's likely to shift the nature of the research coming up. So it is important to know what's current, what's being published. That helps you understand what's topical and what is original as well. And what other people are interested in. Because if you're writing and researching on significant issues, other people will be interested in them as well. So, in terms of possible actions on keeping up to date, you need to do something here. And sharing literature with each other is an important part of this as well. Social work together, sharing of one's references, rather than just hoarding one's own little pot of references, could be one way to do that. Final tutorial, using library databases. This might be a little bit more technical in some ways, but it's still very important. The online tutorial does cover some basic features of searching for literature, but it also gives you a fuller introduction to bibliographic databases. For instance, the Web of Knowledge, or Scopus, are two of those databases. These can be particularly helpful in following up citations of papers. If you found a key paper, you can follow up where it's been cited, or in following up authors and their work. I was just checking out one theorist I've used quite a lot recently, Margaret Archer, a sociologist. And I found a couple of research papers of hers through using Web of Knowledge that I hadn't located using Google Scholar. So I think using more comprehensive sources of information is often very helpful, particularly when you're doing more demanding, more ongoing, more extended pieces of research. So those are the 4 tutorials. And I would emphasise that the skills of information searching and assessing the importance of information are critical when you're trying to make a contribution to knowledge, when you're trying to make an original contribution to knowledge or to practice. And also think how you can embed these skills into your practice as a research student. And finally, don't take the tutorials as the finished product. They're a starting point. Take a critical stance towards them. Think how you could extend them, how you could develop them. That provokes discussion far more easily than just following a recipe. So thank you.